conversations that I hear when somebody's on their deathbed is, I wish I spent more time with my children. Hey, am I okay with my maker? I know the time is about to come where I'm going to meet him. Am I going to go to hell? What are some things that I need to do to secure my spiritual side? What about my family? What can I give them that they would be able to walk away with something very special? I think undoubtedly the Apostle Paul was thinking those very things. I think that as he was writing these last words, he was very likely considering and very strongly considering that he might not have another opportunity to talk to Titus or talk to the people of the region. And so I think that the words that we are about to read should be looked at as incredibly important, because they may very well be amongst some of the last words of a man who took some time to pen to paper or parchment, for lack of a better term, some of the most incredibly important and powerful words that could be given to a younger generation of people who were serving in the ministry. Now, he had already sat down with us and talked to us about the kind of instructions that Titus needed to hear about what he should be teaching and what he shouldn't be teaching, the type of things that he should be emphasizing. And if you missed the last few Bible studies where we've gone over that, I would highly advise you go back and listen, because I think you're going to be greatly blessed as you take to heart all of the things that Paul was communicating to Titus in very much these last days. But then, after giving him all of the things that he should be mindful of, all of the things that he should be teaching, he comes in to where we get into verse 8, where he starts saying some things that are so critically important it's not even funny. Now, I want you to consider the fact that, yes, we're in the last days, but in the last days, how should we then live, right? How should we be acting? Well, we get good insight into that because we see the communication that's going forth between the Apostle Paul and one of his Timothy's, for lack of a better term, right? Somebody that he's instructing and teaching, and these are the things he wants to see taught to the body of Christ. So look what he says here in verse 8. He says, "This is a faithful saying, and these things I will that thou affirm constantly, that they which have believed in God might be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable unto men." Now, that's a very powerful statement. Let me tell you exactly what he's saying. He's saying, I want you to commit yourself to teaching the very principles that I have just taught you. He's going to reiterate them in just a second. But he says, I want you to make sure that these are things that you need to be reiterating. When he says this is a faithful saying, meaning he's emphasizing this. Listen to me. This is important, Titus. This is something that cannot escape your mind. This isn't something that you should be void of communicating. This is critically important. You need to be reminded of this. You have an obligation that extends to you here, right? He says, I want you to affirm constantly. That means I want you to continue to emphasize these things as being important. I want you to emphasize these characteristics. I want you to emphasize how critical it is that people continue to adhere to the things that I have told you to teach. Now, why is he saying that? Because we're in a day today that causes us to be distracted, and be distracted actually quite quickly and very easily. And I think this is something that's very hard for some people to understand, especially when we live in the kind of world in which we are. And it is very, very easy to get distracted. I live in a world, I think we all live in a world today where you have to put up all kinds of, for lack of a better term, sort of stepping stones, right, to kind of teach you or remind you to keep yourself in focus, because it's so easy to become distracted, isn't it? It's very funny how my sister bought my very first watch that I wear on me, this Apple Watch that I have, and every single time they've done an upgrade, not every time, I think every other time, she's always purchased for me on a Christmas or something, the upgrade. And so the very first time I put one of these things on my wrist, I thought, man, you know what, this will kind of be useful, and it'll be a great tool, because I'll have a reminder right there on my wrist, and when I leave my phone set aside, I'll still have something that I can lean on if something goes on. And actually, that's been true. It's been a very remarkable tool, right? When I forget things, reminders come up, and it tells me if I'm in a bind and I need something done from the pulpit, I can very inconspicuously type on my wrist. I've done that a few times, actually without people even noticing it, because it's kind of been under the pulpit, you know, where I saw something like, oh, we got to deal with that. It's been very useful for things like that. It's actually very useful for making a phone call if you don't have your phone with you, because you can do it right here. There's a plethora of other things you can do with this. You can turn the air conditioner on in your house or open up your garage, and there's all kinds of great little practical tools you can